What's the most satisfying revenge story you've ever heard? A few years ago, when I was in college, I had a roommate named Ben. He was the type of person who would take your things without asking, eat your food, and then pretend he had nothing to do with it. But the worst thing he ever did was steal from our third roommate, Chris, a quiet, hardworking guy who mostly kept to himself. Chris had spent months saving up to buy a high-end laptop for his graphic design classes. When it finally arrived, he was ecstatic and spent hours setting it up, but just 2 weeks later, it vanished. At first, we assumed someone had broken into our apartment, but nothing else was missing. Then I noticed that Ben had been acting strangely quiet all day. When I confronted him, he flat out denied taking it. Chris was devastated but had no proof. Fast forward 2 months, and suddenly, Ben had a brand new laptop identical to the one Chris had lost. He insisted he had bought it with his own money, but we knew he was lying. Chris was furious but didn't confront him directly. Instead, he did something unexpected. He started being overly friendly toward Ben. At first, I thought it was strange, but soon, I realized what was happening. Chris was studying computer engineering, and before his laptop had been stolen, he had installed tracking software on it. He never mentioned this to Ben. Over the next few weeks, he quietly gathered evidence tracking every website Ben visited, every file he opened, and every personal message he sent. He compiled everything into one damning file, waiting for the perfect moment. One day, Chris walked into our apartment holding the stolen laptop and calmly said, "Hey, Ben, I need to show you something." He opened the laptop and played a screen recording of Ben logging into his private Instagram account, where he had been pretending to be a 16-year-old high school student to talk to underage girls. At the time, Ben was actually 19. Ben turned pale. Chris didn't yell or threaten him. He just smiled and said, "You have 2 options. Give me back my laptop, or I send all of this evidence to campus security and the police. Your choice." Ben stammered, then finally admitted to stealing the laptop. But Chris wasn't finished. He demanded not only the return of his laptop, but also $500 in compensation for the trouble Ben had caused. Ben had no choice but to agree, and Chris made him sign a written agreement to make it official. But the best part? Chris didn't stop there. He reported Ben to the school's administration, submitting all the evidence he had gathered. Within weeks, Ben was expelled for theft, and as if that weren't enough, the principal also forwarded the incriminating evidence to the police, leading to Ben's arrest.